Welcome to Guide to IELTS. In writing task 1 of IELTS Academic, you might get a variety of question types. We broadly divide these into 3 categories based on how we approach them and the kind of vocabulary we use: graphs, processes, and maps. In this video, we are focusing on map questions. In map questions, you're given layouts of places at different times. You'll usually get 2 maps. Very rarely you might get 3. I recommend that you start practicing with 2 map questions only. If you do get a question which has 3 maps, the maps will be much simpler. These maps could show a variety of things: a building, an open space like a garden, or even an entire city. Just like all writing task 1 academic questions, map questions come with the same instruction. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. In map questions, the main features and comparisons we focus on are the similarities and changes between the 2 maps. We need to describe what is the same between the 2 maps and what has changed. The 2 maps that are given may show the layout of the place in the past and the layout now, the layout of the place now and future planned development, or the layout of the place for 2 different years in the past. The tenses you use in your answer will depend on this, which I'll discuss later in this video. Another important part of understanding map questions is that sometimes there are some symbols in the maps that are not labeled in the map. These symbols are labeled or explained outside the map. This explanation is called the key. For example, in this map, roundabouts and bus stations are labeled separately. So this is not part of the map. This is just telling you that on the map, these are roundabouts and these are bus stations. Similarly, in these 2 maps of an airport, there are many symbols on the map and they are labeled in the key given separately. For any writing question, there are 2 aspects that you need to focus on: how to write, which includes variety of vocabulary and sentences, and what to write and in what order. In case of writing task 1 academic, that means understanding the given data or diagram and deciding what to write. This is why it is important to plan before you start writing. We'll discuss planning of map questions with examples later in this video. For now, let's start with how to write part and discuss some vocabulary for these questions. The words features and elements mean parts of something. That is, the things that something is made of. In a map, the houses, shops, roads, trees, etc. are all features of that map. These words can be used for other writing task 1 academic questions as well. That is for graphs and processes. On your screen, you can see some examples for map questions using these words. For example, one consistent feature across all the maps is the main road located at the northern end. Or, despite the apparently significant changes, the park retains the basic elements of flowers, water, seating, and music. Other synonyms for these words are components, aspects, and characteristics. Always understand the exact meanings of words before using them. A great way to do so is to look up some example sentences online. Layout means how things are arranged. So the layout of the map refers to the arrangement or plan of the elements in a particular area, such as buildings, roads, and parks. Sometimes this word is mentioned in map questions. For example, here it says, the plans show the layout of a university's sports center. Design, arrangement, and configuration are words that we can use to replace the word layout when describing a map. On your screen are different ways to paraphrase this question about maps in an industrial area now and the planned future development of the place. There are a few other similar words as well, which can be used to replace the word layout, but they work only in specific situations. Setup and floor plan are used for indoor areas or buildings. Plan and blueprint are two words which can be used when writing about future or planned development. So whenever future development of a place is mentioned in the map, we can use these two words. The map questions also sometimes mention the roads in an area. An example is this question. Terms like road network, route design, and access routes can be used here. Here are a few different ways of paraphrasing this question. When we are mentioning the layout of the map, or what has changed or what has not changed, it's crucial to mention where things are located on the map. There are three ways to describe location of something on a map. The first are the cardinal directions, that is, north, south, east, west, northeast, etc. Sometimes the map will have directions indicated in one corner, but even if they are not there, you can use these directions in your writing. If you're confused between west and east, remember the word V. West is on the left side and east is on the right side. The second way in which you can tell where things are located on the map is using words like left, right, top, and bottom. For example, the fountain is in the center of the map. One add-on tip here, the word center has two spellings. Both would be marked correct in IELTS. Both American and British spellings are acceptable and are marked correct in IELTS. This is also true for your reading and listening tests in IELTS. The third way of writing about location of things is in relation of other things. So instead of saying that something is in the eastern side of the map or something is at the left side of the map, I could write that one thing is near the other thing, etc. So we can use terms like next to, along, adjacent to, opposite, and near. A few other such words are on your screen. Here are a few sentence templates for mentioning the location. Note that in these sentences, the same thing is being described but in different ways. It is important to use a variety of words and sentences in your IELTS writings. To describe the location, the in the center part of the sentence can be replaced by any of these. So depending on the location of the gym, I could say that the gym is located to the right of the map or at the bottom center, etc. Similarly, to describe the location of one thing on the map in relation to another, we can use sentences like these. Here are a few other phrases which can be used for relative location. Let's understand a few of these. Along means in a line next to something. For example, for this map I could write, rows of shops are located along either side of the main road. We can use the phrase along the periphery to describe something positioned on the outer edge of an area. Along the periphery and along the boundary can refer to the outer edge of things of any shape, but along the circumference specifically refers to the outer boundary of circular objects. For this map, I could write, previously there were seats along some parts of the inner periphery of the park. Perpendicular means at an angle of 90 degrees. So here I could write, City Road was perpendicular to Hospital Road, or City Road ran perpendicular to Hospital Road. If there are residential areas towards outer parts of a town, we can use the word suburbs or outskirts. These terms are generally used for residential areas, but outskirts can also refer to industrial or commercial areas located on the outer edges of a town or a city. These phrases and sentences will help you accurately describe locations in your IELTS Writing Task 1 map responses. Please keep in mind that all the example sentences we have discussed are in the present tense. We will discuss the usage of different tenses in map questions later in this video. You would need to alter these sentences accordingly. In a map, there are different places and structures. Let's discuss these. We often see houses mentioned in maps. Some synonyms that can be used are housing, homes, residential areas, etc. Similarly, for shops, we can write retail establishments or commercial area consisting of shops. Some sample sentences using these are on your screen. When there are a group of buildings, there are specific collective nouns that can be used. When the buildings are in a line, we can use the word row. For example, there are a row of shops along either side of the road. If buildings are close together, we use the word cluster. For flats or apartments, we can say block of flats or apartment complex. If there is a bridge, we can use the phrase running across. For example, the river now has a bridge running across it, connecting the two halves of the city. This can also be used for roads if the road runs from one side of an area to another. For example, the new road runs across the town, linking the eastern and western parts. Farmland are agricultural areas. Green space or green belt means an area of land protected from urban development, usually used for parks, gardens, and natural scenery. For example, the map shows a large green belt surrounding the residential area, providing a natural buffer from the city center. We often see schools mentioned in maps. There is no way to replace this word, but we can add vocabulary when writing about schools by making sentences such as, the school premises or the school campus is in the northern part of the map. Or another sentence we can make is using the term educational institute. The only educational institute seen in the map is a school which has reduced in size. You can see synonyms and example sentences for a few other such places on your screen. Recreational areas or places of entertainment and leisure are general terms we use to refer to places where we can go to relax. It can include playgrounds, sports fields, golf courses, gyms, cinemas, and amusement parks. If we see two or more of these in a map, we can use such terms to describe them. For example, in the blueprint for the planned development, recreational areas, sports ground, and golf course have been included. Since writing about maps focuses on changes and similarities between two maps, a word that is often used is changed. We can also use altered and modified in its place. And to vary the vocabulary further, different word forms of these three can be used: changes, alterations, and modifications. Other synonyms that can be used include transformed, updated, revised, developed, and evolved. All these words can be used to describe changes, but some have slightly different uses. For example, transformed often implies that there is a dramatic change, while updated and revised can suggest minor adjustments or improvements. Some example sentences using these words are on your screen. We'll discuss some more vocabulary later in the video. For now, let's finally talk about the format of your writing response. The basic format that you follow in response to an IELTS Writing Task 1 academic question is that you start with the paraphrasing of the question. Paraphrasing means writing the question in different words. After that, you write the overall statement. Overall statement is a brief summary of the whole map in 1 or 2 sentences. And then you write the similarities and changes that you see when comparing the two maps. You can write the overall statement at the end also, that is after the similarities and changes. You can also change the format a little by starting with the paraphrasing, then writing a brief description of the main features of the first map. After that, you write similarities and changes, then the overall statement. But it could make your answer very lengthy and it could take more time. When you write similarities and changes, you will discuss both the maps. You will discuss that something is like this in the first map and then it has changed like this in the second map. So you will be talking about both the maps when talking about similarities and changes. Now let's discuss each of these a little. Paraphrasing means expressing the same idea using different words and structures. Even if you change word form, it is considered paraphrasing. For example, in this case, one of the changes that I have made during paraphrasing is that I've changed the word open to opening. An additional tip here is that sometimes there is information in the title of the maps which is not there in the question and which can be used when you paraphrase a question. The question that you're given is in active voice. So one other way to paraphrase is that you can change it to passive voice. Let's now talk about the overall statement. You can write the overall statement after the paraphrasing or you can write it at the end of the writing. Overall statement is a summary of the main changes or features without going into too much detail. Observe the two given maps and identify where the main changes are. And that is what your overall statement is. A couple of examples are on your screen. Next, you briefly describe the first map. This is optional. You can choose to skip it and start with the comparisons. If you do describe the first map, you mention the key features and their locations without going into too much detail. You can see examples of this on your screen. Now we come to the main part of the writing, which is the comparisons, the similarities and the changes. Let's now understand how to decide what to write and in what order. In other words, how to plan before you start writing. An important point here is that in IELTS Writing Task 1 Academic, it is not required that you mention all the details of everything. That is not possible in the given time anyway. But you should ensure that no important features, or as the question says, main features, are skipped. This is why you need to have an outline of what to write before you start writing. Also, to get a good band score, your writing should be well organized. You should plan how to organize the similarities and changes before you start writing. I usually start with what is unchanged between the two maps. Then I write about minor changes or about things which may have moved. And finally, I write about something new that has been introduced. But this is a very tentative structure of how I usually plan. How I plan and structure my writing would depend on exactly what is there in the map. Make sure you always plan what to write and where to write it before you get down to the actual writing. So, as you plan what to write, you also plan what you will write first and what after that and so on. To plan a map question, start by looking at the first map to get a basic idea of what is there. Then start comparing the two maps. I start by noting what has not changed and what has changed. But as I start listing out things, sometimes we have some things which have changed a little, or we have something where another thing of the same kind is added. So to organize my writing better, I then start deciding to write these things together. Let's look at this with an example. As I plan this writing task 1 question, the first thing I decide to mention is that the outdoor courts will no longer be there and the indoor area of the university sports center will increase. After that, as I start listing out the similarities, that is what has not changed, one of the first things I notice is the 25-meter pool. But then there is another pool that has been added. So it just makes sense that I mention these two together, that there is a pool in the center of the University Sports Center, which will remain as it is. However, in the western corner or in the left corner of the University Sports Center, a new pool will be constructed. So changes can be of different types. For example, something entirely new has been built. One thing is built in place of another. Something was already there and another one of the same kind is built, etc. Make a note of this. Make sure you cover all the major things and then start writing. In all my videos where sample writings have been written, I have discussed the planning as well. I'll leave the link to a couple of these in the description of this video. These are some phrases that you can write to begin these sentences. You can start your sentences with looking at the first map we can see, or according to the older map, or according to the map of this year, to write that something has remained unchanged in the two maps. These are some of the sentence templates that you can use. One part of the vocabulary that we can vary a lot is when we write about changes. When we talk about something changing, there are many different ways in which it could have changed. I've tried to categorize them here. This will help you with the vocabulary and it will also help you plan and organize your writing. Sometimes there are minor changes. So we can use phrases like there is hardly any change or there is negligible change in this aspect or in this feature of the map. Another possible change is that something has expanded or it has increased in size. As I keep talking about these different changes, you can see other synonyms for this and some example sentences on your screen. Sometimes we see that the location of something has changed. One thing that we see happening a lot in maps is that something has replaced the other thing. So there was a fountain here, now it has been replaced by a rose garden. There are many different ways to write about one thing replacing the other. Another possible change you could see in maps is that something new is constructed. We can use the verb installed when we are talking about some machinery or some equipment that is placed there instead of constructed there. This can be used for things like solar panels or fountains. For example, a fountain had been installed in the center of the park when it initially opened. Renovate, modernize, and reconstruct are words which can be used when something old has been updated. An important aspect of map questions in IELTS Writing Task 1 Academic is that some time has passed or will pass between the two maps. So we need different ways of mentioning this. You can see some of these phrases along with example sentences on the screen. Now let's understand the difference between some of these phrases. Over the years indicates gradual changes over a long duration. Usually, over the years is used for an unspecified time period, and during and throughout are used for a specific time period. However, we can use over for a specific time period as well by making a sentence like over the next 5 years. The word span can be used both in your paraphrasing of the question and later as well. We can use either within a span of these many years or over a span of these many years. This is something that you can use in graphs as well. Note that you can use the same word more than once with changes in how you use it. So I can say in the 10-year span or over a span of 10 years. To describe different structures in a map, we may need to mention their shapes as well. For example, the renovated University Sports Center will be rectangular, providing a large spacious area for different sports activities. Similarly, we can use words like square, circular, semicircular, and even mention that something has a curved edge. In IELTS Academic Writing Task 1, map questions depict changes over different time periods. The tense you use depends on whether the map shows changes in the past, present, or future. We may get two maps which are both in the past. For example, here the two maps are for the years 2007 and 2010. So both are in the past. Sometimes we get past and present, and very often we get present and planned future development. The tenses you use, the words you use will depend on this. When both maps depict changes that have already occurred, you should use the past tense. For example, in 2007, there were bus stops along either side of Hospital Road, which were demolished by 2010. When one map shows the past and the other shows the present, you should use past tense for the older map and the present tense for the current map. In 1920, a fountain was installed at the center of the park, but now it has been replaced by a rose garden. When one map shows the present and the other shows future development, you should use the present tense for the current map and the future tense for the planned development. For example, the current layout includes a pool and a changing room, but after redevelopment, another pool and two changing rooms will have been added. In each of the cases, I have mentioned a few other example sentences on the screen. These will give you ideas about how you can vary the vocabulary and how you can vary the sentence structures. Now we move on to aspects of writing that can be useful not just when comparing maps, but in all forms of writing. First, let's talk about transitional phrases and conjunctions. These are words and phrases that help connect ideas smoothly in your writing. They contribute to your vocabulary and cohesion and coherence scores, helping your writing flow better and make it easier to understand. As I mention these, you'll be able to see example sentences on your screen. First in this list are phrases for adding to a thought. For example, if I mention one change in my writing, and then I want to mention another change, I can use moreover, furthermore, in addition, or additionally. I can also use conjunctions like not only but also. Also, words like similarly and likewise can be used when adding to the same kind of thing in a writing. Then there are words and phrases which we use when talking about two opposite things. These are called contrast words. For example, if I want to say that one thing has changed but the other has not, I can use however, on the other hand, conversely, in contrast, or in comparison. For showing contrast or opposite things, we can also use although, even though, despite, in spite of, and yet. Please make sure that you understand the sentence structures and punctuation required to use these. For example, many people make mistakes when using conjunctions like not only but also and despite. I've given you a lot of words and phrases here. You'll need very few of these when writing one IELTS Academic Writing Task 1 response. Practice using a variety of words and phrases, but practice with the ones that you're comfortable with so that you don't make mistakes. You do not need to know each one of these to score well in your IELTS writing. Let's now talk about different sentence structures. You need to use a variety of sentence structures to get a good band score in IELTS. I've discussed these in detail in another video, but here I'll just give you a quick tip. As I mentioned, the different types of sentences, you'll be able to see example sentences on your screen. A simple sentence has no conjunction or connector. A complex sentence has subordinating conjunctions. A compound sentence has coordinating conjunctions. And a compound complex sentence has both subordinating and coordinating conjunctions. So as you practice, keep a few of these conjunctions in mind, see where they fit into your writing, and you'll be able to ensure a variety of sentence types. I'll show you a few example sentences that you can make using these conjunctions when you're writing about maps. We can remember the coordinating conjunctions with the acronym FANBOYS, for, and, nor, and so on. Some subordinating conjunctions that can be particularly useful for describing changes and comparing different time periods or developments on maps are although, before, after, when, where, whereas, etc. By incorporating a mix of simple, complex, compound, and compound complex sentences, you can enhance the clarity and variety of your writing, contributing to a high band score in the IELTS Writing Task 1 academic map questions. Next is referencing and substitution. These are important parts of cohesion and coherence criteria in your IELTS writing assessment. Referencing and substitution mean that when something is mentioned for the second time, we don't name it again. Instead, we replace it with another, usually very simple word. This helps avoid repetition and makes the writing smoother. Let's look at a few examples. The fountain has been demolished. It has been replaced by a rose garden. It is used in the second sentence instead of repeating the fountain. There is a water feature and children's play area along the right wall of the park. These two features were added during the recent renovation. These two features refer to the water feature and the children's play area. The University Sports Center will be expanded. This area will include the space that is now occupied by the outdoor courts. This area is a substitution for the University Sports Center. The airport, which will be renovated by next year, has 8 gates towards the northern end of the building. Which will be renovated by next year gives additional information about the airport. We can write the same thing in 2 different sentences as well. Using these techniques effectively can enhance the cohesion and coherence of your IELTS writing. Finally, as a rule, we shouldn't give our opinions in IELTS Writing Task 1 academic responses. However, sometimes you can provide a little context or add some explanation or assumption. Just don't overdo it. Here are a few examples. Our modern day needs are very different, so public restrooms have been added. So the map shows new public restrooms in a park that were not there in the earlier version. This added information suggests that the change was made to meet current public requirements. New parking space has been constructed, presumably because of the increase in private vehicles. The map illustrates newly built parking areas. This sentence assumes the reason for this change is a rise in car ownership. Increased traffic means that a small park has now been replaced with a large parking lot. So the map shows a small park being replaced by a parking lot. This added context explains that the change was likely due to increased traffic. A new playground has been installed in the park, providing a safe area for children to play. The map shows a new playground added to a park. This sentence explains the purpose of the playground. Bicycle racks have been added throughout the town to encourage eco-friendly transportation. The map indicates new bicycle racks in various locations. This sentence says that the reason is to promote cycling as an eco-friendly option. Green spaces have been added, reflecting a greater emphasis on environmental sustainability. The map depicts enlarged green areas. This sentence explains that the change likely reflects a focus on sustainability. But as I said, don't do this too often. Your focus should be to write about what you can see in the map. So this video ended up being much longer than I had originally planned. However, I really wanted to incorporate all the different aspects of writing about maps. Many parts of this video do not just pertain to writing about maps. Some can help you write about other Writing Task 1 academic tasks as well. For example, the word features. And some can help you in writing about anything. That would include Writing Task 2, that is your IELTS essay. But broadly speaking, anything that you write, whether it is a letter, an email, a university assignment, or content for a PowerPoint presentation. For example, the list of transitional phrases such as moreover and however mentioned in this video. The video is divided into chapters. You can go to any part that is relevant to your needs at the moment. That's it for now from my side. Hope this helped you. All the very best.